Hi everyone, it's your girl Shanice. Welcome to my channel. And if you are new here, make sure you are hitting the subscribe button and also turn on your bell so you get notified every time I make new videos. So today I'm going to be talking about something that I told you I was going to be talking about. Actually, I'm really excited because for the first time in my whole entire life, I decided to methodically read the Bible from Genesis all the way to Revelation. And I'm using our Rhapsody of Realities. It's a daily devotional. And I already read the Rhapsody every single day. And so I decided this year that as part of my Bible study, I will go ahead and do what they call their 1 year Bible study reading plan. As you can see, they also have the 2 year Bible reading plan. And I was just like, you know what? Rapture could happen this year. Who knows? Let's do the 1 year one. I like to challenge myself, obviously. If you're not new to the channel, you already know this about me. So I like to do probably the hardest thing and then I go from there. And we can't fail as Christians. So, I always shoot higher than I probably need to because of that very reason, because I know that by the power of the Spirit, I'll be able to accomplish it. So with that being said, I wanted to talk about some key takeaways and just different things I noticed as I was reading the Bible, specifically in Genesis, because we've gone through a lot of Genesis by the time I'm making this video. If you're following the 1 year Bible study plan, you see that we get through a lot of Genesis very, very quickly. But I feel like there's so much that we can take away from Genesis, and I'll try to be very, very brief with this. So the first thing that I always call out when I study Genesis, because I have studied the book of Genesis before, and one thing I really stayed on is just creation and recreation. When I previously studied the book of Genesis, I was really, you've seen my sound code videos. We talk extensively on Genesis and how the Lord came to create the world and then recreate the world, because we know that verse 1 and verse 2, though not noted in specifically in Genesis, later on we find out that there is that gap that happens in between those verses where the world is destroyed and is left as nothing but this void of darkness and just water. And then God has to come in and recreate the world. And that's when we now see Adam and Eve. And something that stuck with me when it comes to creating man is that man was not created to die. People grapple and have a hard time understanding this concept that man really wasn't created to die, but it's right there in scriptures. If you read chapter 2 of Genesis, we find that he was the man, Adam, was created with everything he needed already inside of him. In fact, when God wants to bring someone to help him, he takes from Adam, he takes the rib of Adam to bring the woman, to bring the female, the human 2.0, right? Because think about it, when we're doing iPhones and whatever, the next thing is called the 2.0 version. So is the female technically a 2.0 version of the man? Let me know in the comments if you I have a lot of very controversial takes that people are always like, how did you get that from this? But to me, it's like, A plus B equals C. But, maybe not so much for you guys. But let me know if you agree with what I'm saying. Or if you can see how I came to that conclusion. Anyways, by chapter 3, we see that, sin has entered in with Satan, deceiving Eve and, by proxy, Adam. And something that stuck with me was that, they don't own up to their actions. We know Satan deceived them, but Satan didn't force them to eat. He didn't. And that's one thing I'm always like, we need to concentrate on the fact that ultimately they made the choice to disobey God. Satan said whatever he said, but they made the choice and they don't own up to it. And that really stuck with me. And then if you go in Genesis 3 verse 16, when I study the Bible, I normally do King James Version. Sometimes I'll do NIV, but I'll also look at other translations whenever I get stuck, especially AMPC or AMP, to really get to the root of what exactly is happening. Because some translations, depending on what version you're on, sometimes it's wonky. And I found it hard to understand verse 16 specifically of chapter 3. So that's one of my takeaway verses that I'm really praying with to get understanding from the Holy Spirit. But if you all already know, can you explain to me in verse 16, is it saying that the man did not rule over the woman previously, but now he's going to? Very interested in hearing what you have to say, because the different translations have it all over the place. Anyways, with that being said, we go into chapter 4 with Cain and Abel, and I just noticed how God is always asking these people questions that he already has the answer to. And they still, they want to lie and avoid it and evade it. Human beings have just not changed. It's kind of depressing, honestly. It's kind of depressing that millennia passes and human beings are still the exact same. Anyways, we go on, and in chapter 6 we see that God shortens the human lifespan considerably. I mean, at this point they've been living to 500 and up years, and now you see God is like, okay, you guys need to just be done. You need to be done. And then the flood happens, and we know about Noah. We know all that happened with Noah, and God makes that covenant, and his sign is the rainbow. No matter what anybody else wants to say, that is the sign of God's covenant, that he will not destroy the world by water ever again. So then we get into Abraham. And Abraham is a very interesting story once we get into chapter 12 of Genesis, because what did I just don't understand? This man is always lying about his relationship with his wife, and I just found that so funny. Except it wasn't funny. It wasn't funny. He felt like he had to lie. Abraham felt like he had to lie that Sarai, I don't know how you pronounce it back then before God changes her name to Sarah, but he has to lie that she's his sister, even though they're married. I mean, technically she's kind of his half sister, but back then everybody was kind of related to each other. So the incest part, you just have to get over that part, because really they were all related at this point. So she's technically his sister, but they're married. So at that point you have to address her as your wife. But he doesn't want the Egyptians to come and feel like they have to kill him to take his wife. So he says that that's his wife, or that his wife is his sister, and each time that he does that, they're caught. Each time, they're caught multiple times. And it's so funny to me that by the time you get into Isaac, his son, in chapter 26, Isaac tries to play the same trick with his wife Rebecca. So I'm just like, these people, we gotta stop this. I don't know what it is, but we gotta stop this. If she's your wife, claim her publicly, okay? These guys have not been claiming their wives, and it's really obvious that they're your wife, because you're still doing all these things that you would do with just your wife. But something that stuck with me about Abram is just how wise he was in his dealings with God, how loyal he was, how faithful he was to God. When God promised him that he would have a child through Sarah, he shares this with his wife. But one thing that stuck to me about Sarah's disposition is that she's like a lot of Christians these days. They're like, they don't want to believe what God has told them, and they find ways to make it so that they can help God achieve what he's saying, because for whatever reason they don't like what he said, or they don't feel like what he said is possible, so they try to help God. And that's where all her problems start. You create problems for yourself when you try to help God. That's what her story told me. Because why does this woman say, you know what, God must mean that you are going to have a child with my slave, my servant, instead of me, when God is very clear that the child is going to come from you? That's where all her troubles start, for real. And, even when she hears God's prophecy, when God, came to visit Abraham at this point, and he's talking to him, she's laughing. The way you accept the prophecies upon your life is going to make a difference. It's going to be different. And something that stuck me about Lot's story, just to show how depraved Sodom and Gomorrah was that when the two angels came to visit him, the men that lived in Sodom came to rape them, came to rape these angels because they thought these men were just regular men. So they came to rape them. And Lot is like, oh, instead of doing this horrible thing, raping as men, you're raping other men. Let me give you my two virgin daughters to rape instead. Oh my God, what is happening? And they're like, no, they want to just rape the men. Can you imagine? And so the angels, they make sure that the men can't see. They blind the men. And they try to help Lot, and they warn Lot of what's going to happen. And Lot tries to warn his son-in-laws or his sons-in-law, and they don't want to leave. So that means Lot really was only leaving with his wife and those two virgin daughters. Those were the only people he could save. God wanted to save everybody that Lot could bring, but Lot could only bring those people. And it just makes me think about how this is like the rapture of the church, You want to save everybody, but some people will laugh in your face the way his sons-in-law did when he tried to get them out of the city. Like, what would it have hurt? If he's lying, you come back 2 days later. What would it have hurt to listen to him? Is what I asked myself a lot. What would it have hurt? But ultimately, Lot is not like Abraham. Lot is very scared. He doesn't even yield to the angels' instruction. He's trying to do things his way, and the angels give him a lot of leeway. They're like, okay, you don't want to go to the mountains? Okay, go to that town that you want to go. We'll make sure that you're still safe over there. But guess what? He still ends up in the mountains anyways. And besides his wife looking back, the one that stuck with me is his two daughters, those two virgin daughters that he saved. They end up raping their father. They date rape their father. Can you imagine? It's crazy out here, for real. It's really crazy. And something else that stuck with me from Abraham's story, we talk about the test with Isaac, his son, God asking him to sacrifice Isaac. And something that stuck me when you look at chapter 22 of Genesis is that from the beginning, Abraham was insisting that he will come back down that mountain with his son, because he knew that God had said it was from Isaac that he would make the promise that he had with Abraham happen. It was through Isaac. So he didn't doubt God. So even if he had to sacrifice Isaac, he knew somehow Isaac will still come down with him from that mountain. And that really stuck with me, because look at the amount of faith he has. The amount of faith he has in God. It's crazy. I'm going to stop here because this video has gotten long, but I want to say, to wrap up, because towards the end we start getting into Jacob and Esau and all that. And something that stuck with me about Rebecca is just how much it pays to be a mama's boy. Maybe that's not the best way to phrase it, but listening to Rebecca saved Jacob's life. It not just saved his life, it prospered him. So if that doesn't tell you to listen to your mom, I don't know what will. But that's the lesson that I took away from that. And I hope you guys put in your comments whatever you're taking away, because I know a couple of you are doing this with me. If you're not, it's not too late to start. You can do the 2-year Bible reading plan, or just read it on your own in whatever pace you want to read it in. But I just like the structure that the Rhapsody provides. So I can't wait to hear what y'all have to say in the comments. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a blessed day. Love you. Bye.